Hi everyone, welcome to the tutorial. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to do one colour brioche when you're working a flat piece of knitting. I'd like to begin by talking about a stitch abbreviation that's unique to brioche, which is SL1YO, and this stands for a slip-on yarn over. In traditional slip stitch fabrics, you slip each stitch by transferring it from your left to your right hand needle, and as you do that you'll just hold your yarn either in the back or the front of your work, ready for a coming knit or purl stitch. Holding the yarn in place like this and then bringing it directly across the knitting to use again creates a float of yarn in front of or behind our work, and that removes some of the elasticity and stretch in our knitted fabric. Now, if you've ever held a piece of brioche knitting in your hands before, you'll know that it's a very stretchy and elastic stitch pattern. And yet brioche is also made by slipping stitches. What allows brioche to be so stretchy is that A, it's a lot like ribbing because it's made up of alternating knit and purl columns, and B, as we perform each slip stitch, we're going to wrap our yarn around the needle like a yarn over. This adds much more yarn into the fabric than a float does, and that extra yarn equals stretch. Let's now jump into how we make slip-on yarn overs and begin working our one colour brioche fabric together. The first row of brioche is commonly a setup row to establish our yarn overs. My first row begins just with a simple knit one. That's easy enough, just knit one normally. Now we come across that slip-on yarn over instruction. To make a slip-on yarn over, we're going to bring our working yarn to the front of our work by passing it under the right hand needle. Then we'll slip the next stitch purlwise, which means inserting our right hand needle into the stitch as if we were going to purl it, and then just transfer the stitch off of the left hand needle. It is important that you're slipping your stitches as if to purl rather than knitwise like this, because slipping knitwise will twist them. Okay, so now we're going to take our yarn to the back of our work by passing it over the top of our right hand needle. And at this stage, our slip-on yarn over is completed. It looks a bit weird though, because there's nothing anchoring our yarn over in place yet. Thankfully, our next stitch is just an easy knit one again, and we can do that now our yarn is at the back of our work again and in the correct position for a knit stitch. So insert the right hand needle into that next stitch, wrap the yarn around the needle as if to knit, draw the new loop through, and slip the old stitch off of the left hand needle. Now we've worked this knit one, it's anchored the yarn over part of our slip-on yarn over, so we can see how it was formed a little more clearly. We can see the slip stitch just here, and then we can see our yarn crossing over the top of the stitch, having passed from under our right hand needle to the front of our work, then across the top of the needle to the back of our work. The slip stitch and the yarn over together count as one stitch. So if you're checking your stitch counts, make sure that you don't separate them into two different stitches. They equal one. And it means we currently have 1, 2, 3 stitches on our right hand needle. Now until the end of the row, we're just going to keep repeating our slip-on yarn over, knit one pattern. So again, for a slip-on yarn over, we bring our yarn to the front of our work by passing it under the right hand needle, slip the next stitch purlwise, then bring our yarn to the back of our work by passing it over the top of the right hand needle, and then knit the next stitch. Slip one yarn over, knit the next stitch. Slip one yarn over, knit the next stitch. Hooray, there's our first row of brioche complete. We're ready now to turn our needle and work across the reverse side of our knitting. In this next row, we're going to give every alternate stitch a yarn over and work the previous slip stitches and yarn overs together. My row begins with a slip-on purlwise with yarn in front, and this creates a neat looking selvage along the side of my piece. So I'll make sure my yarn is sitting at the front of my work and not wrapped around either needle. Then I'll transfer the first stitch from the left to the right hand needle, having inserted the right hand needle as if I was making a purl stitch. I'm then going to take my yarn to the back of my work by passing it under the needle. And now we come across another abbreviation unique to brioche, which is BRK1, and that stands for brioche knit 1. This is a really easy stitch. All we're going to do is insert our needle into both the next stitch and its yarn over together, kind of like we're working a knit 2 together decrease. And then we just complete a knit stitch as normal. That's all there is to a brioche knit 1. Now we see SL1YO again, so we know that means to slip one yarn over. We'll bring our yarn to the front of our work by passing it under the right hand needle, slip the next stitch purlwise, then bring the yarn to the back of our work by passing it over the top of the right hand needle. We're now going to keep repeating our brioche knit 1 slip one yarn over pattern. So our yarn is in the correct position for a knit stitch, and the brioche knit 1 just means we insert our needle into both the slip stitch and its yarn over, then work those two loops together as a normal knit stitch. Slip one yarn over, so bring the yarn to the front of our work by passing it under the right hand needle, slip the next stitch purlwise, bring the yarn to the back by passing it over the right hand needle, and I'll keep repeating that slowly until I get to my last 2 stitches. The first of these last 2 stitches is a brioche knit 1 again, and then I have another slip-on purlwise with yarn in front to also create a neat looking selvage on this side of the piece. So I'll bring my yarn under the right hand needle, then slip the stitch purlwise. I just want to make sure I don't then wrap my yarn around the needle like for my slip-on yarn overs. This is just a normal slip stitch, and we've put our yarn in the correct position so that when we now turn our work and see that the next row begins with a knit 1, our yarn is in the correct position to do that knit 1. The rest of our one colour brioche now just involves lots of repetition of what we've already learned. This row asks us to knit 1, then slip one yarn over, brioche knit 1 to our last 2 stitches, and we know how to work that pattern now. Slip one yarn over, brioche knit 1, slip one yarn over, brioche knit 1, etc. Then the second to last stitch of the row is a slip one yarn over, and my final stitch is a knit 1. In the next row, we again begin with a slip one purlwise with yarn in front. And once I've done that, I'm going to be careful that I take my yarn to the back by passing it under the needle so I don't give this plain slip stitch a yarn over. Then we brioche knit 1, slip one yarn over, brioche knit 1, slip one yarn over to the last 2 stitches. Then brioche knit 1, slip one purlwise with the yarn in front. Keep repeating those last 2 rows until the desired length of your one colour brioche fabric is reached. Because when we're working brioche, we slip every even numbered stitch in one row and then every odd numbered stitch in the following row, it means that over 2 rows, we've actually only knitted each stitch once. So if we're counting the rows in our brioche fabric, every completed row that we can see was actually worked over 2 rows. Here I can see 5 rows, counting the V-stitches like normal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which means that actually I've worked 10 rows in total. Just be careful that you count your rows after you've definitely completed a set of 2. And you can check that by counting them on both sides of your fabric. If I had 5 on one side and only 4 on the other, that would mean I've actually worked 9 rows in total, and I'd have 1 more to go to complete a full pair of rows. That's how we work one colour brioche in a flat piece of knitting. Thank you so much for watching the tutorial. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.